Hey, what's going on, guys? It's like a hero, and today I'm going to show you my build, my SORC build here that I've been using to get into World Tier 4. But I really think that this build is endgame ready, like endgame proof, and you'll be using this build much like I did to go from 50 World Tier 3 to now 66 World Tier 4. Now, the cool thing about this is that, and just a disclaimer here, is that I have not switched my gear. I have not upgraded my gear. And once I show you some of that gear, you can see here, this is what, tier 9 here at this point. So I turned 50, started grinding nightmare dungeons, made this build for those nightmare dungeons, and I didn't actually switch the gear out until, well, actually, I still haven't switched it out as of right now. I'm in World Tier 4 now. So the build is definitely ready for all the content you're going to throw at it, and which is just nightmare dungeons at this point if you are, past 60. Let me actually, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. You can see that right here I did this boss in World Tier 9 right here. I mean, they die pretty fast. Right, and then now I'm going to kind of skip forward until I did the same boss, but now in World Tier 21. Guys, without even switching any of the gear. Okay, the same aspects, the same gear, not even upgrading the gear, the same exact build, literally doing a tier 9, tier 1, all the way to tier 21. And even this one right here, I'm going to pause it. If you could see it. Yeah, you can see it here. It says, even with the affix of 60% less damage from critical strikes, you can see how fast you're still doing the boss. Now remember, I haven't upgraded anything. Right, I threw this build together at level 50, and it's still the same content, the same build. So I actually do want to get in here, and we're going to get here right away. I'm going to timestamp this. So we're first going to go over the gear loadout here, the build, and then we're going to move into the skill tree, and then finally the Paragon board. So as of right now, I'm level 66. I am doing World Tier 4 content. You saw right there, those mobs are 10 levels higher than me, so I'm doing content well above my level. There really is no point to doing this, guys, unless you just want the challenge of it. But there really is no challenge, but you should stick to plus 54 for your key, and then you want to be, within the same level as you, because really there's no more benefit since the nerfs. There's a lot of mob density, so that's going to help you level quickly. So you don't have to worry about doing 10, 15 levels higher than you, unless you want to, like I was showing you in the video. All right, so for my helmet here, you're going to want to take the Veer's Mastery. And again, some of these aspects you could just kind of flip around, but I'm just going to show you the ones that I have. My rolls on all this are pretty bad. It's kind of comical. You'll see when I get to my chest piece here. But the Veer's Mastery aspect here, that's for damage reduction for enemies that are close, up to 27%. I have 7.8, 23. Doesn't really matter though. Cooldown reduction, maximum mana. You're going to want maximum life on here, and total armor roll. Okay, so you want the defensives. And you're going to see here that I don't have many defensives. However, I'm still able to do the content. So just imagine how much easier that content's going to be once you get some defensives. So, like I said earlier, my chest piece is pretty comical here. I have fire damage resist, terrible. It's not a waste, right? But I do have thorns, poison resist, and lightning resist. So, not what you're looking for. I do have the basic audacity aspect, though. I definitely like this for, getting in stunning, and there's a little bit of synergy with this and crowd control damage, right? But you definitely don't want like thorns, poison resist, lightning damage. You're going to want your like main defensive stats. So, we're talking your chest and your legs. So just get armor, damage to close, or sorry, damage resistance to close, damage reduction from distant enemies, just general damage reduction, armor, or you can substitute one of those for maximum life. When it comes to our gauntlets here, I did upgrade these gauntlets, you can see, but all the rest are not upgraded, not even my weapon here, just because I don't want to waste mats on content. If I'm just breezing through it, I was like, I don't really want to wear mats. But we do have or waste money on mats. So here we go. We have critical strike chance, which is great. 3 ranks of chain lightning, 15 all stats. Obviously, in the perfect scenario, that critical strike chance is there. You have the chain lightning, but you also want like ranks of fireball. So that is possible to get a double roll. So you just would have to re-roll one of those other ones in the perfect scenario, right? Otherwise, sticking to your normal critical strike chance, your 15 all stats, not terrible, ranks of chain lightning. But ideally, you want ranks of fireball and ranks of chain lightning on here. For the aspect, I have the Edge Masters, and that's it. Pants here, I have maximum life, total armor, great rolls. Again, you can see I only have 3 stats. This was a level 52 pants here. I don't mind the movement speed, but I think having when you use a potion, having a barrier is better. But again, I do have the basic low level, right? The codex. And I think that's one of the things of this build is that you can just throw on a lot of stuff from your codex. And so there's not you having to hunt for certain, for all these different aspects. So I do have the disobedience on there. Again, you're going to want a lot of defensives on here. I would get rid of that intelligence, and I would have, again, more damage reduction, total armor, maximum life, those things like that. For our legs, or sorry, our boots here, it's 2 ranks of ice armor, 2 ranks of flame shield, 2 ranks of frost nova. I don't have a problem with this. I would definitely drop the dexterity there for movement speed, though. I do like the ranks of ice armor, the ranks of flame shield, the ranks of frost nova. For our necklace, and we'll get into that, we're gonna want rolls of defensive. So, but for the aspect here, I'm using the conduit aspect, so that's 25% movement speed for 3 seconds after you teleport. That's just to get through the dungeon quicker. And I also have, when I evade, it grants me a little bit of movement speed as well. But that's, I mean, for now, that's what I'm using. You could see that you're just blowing through the content. There are different scenarios where you can take like the audacity aspect and put it on the boots. But for now, that's fine. You don't really need anything else. For our staff, and you really do need a staff here because of the double, or the increased effect on your aspects. In like, my stats are not that great here, but you are going to want like core skill damage. You're going to want critical strike damage. You're going to want your vulnerable, your usual, maybe a main stat roll in there. For the aspect, it's the unbroken tether, which is chain lightning, has a 60% to 80%. Again, this is the low ball here because, again, these are things that you can have in your codex. So I just put the basic one on there, haven't bothered upgrading it. That is, chain lightning has a 60% chance to chain 4 additional times. This is great because it's going to help us with our mana regeneration later on, but you can get that up to 80% chance to chain 4 additional times. So you're going to be doing a lot of damage, but also a lot of mana regeneration. So let's move on here, and I'm going to show you that here. On our necklace, on our amulet, we have movement speed, which I think is really good. Total armor, which I think is really good. The damage is okay, but I would not be sacrificing other stats for the damage. I do really like Devouring Blaze. You could take something with defensives as well. Devouring Blaze increases our critical strike damage, one of our passives, for against burning enemies. And because I'll show you our enchantments in a little bit, we're going to be passing that burning on to multiple enemies. So as many ranks of Devouring Blaze, total armor, movement speed, and then some damage reduction. You get a lot of damage reduction on your amulet, so that's what I would take, but not terrible here. Again, I only have the basic here stat when it comes to the Elementalist aspect, which is core and mastery skills cast at or above 100%, gain an additional 30%, up to 60% critical strike chance. If you get this max roll, that's 60% crit chance, right? For your abilities that you cast above. So you can easily cap out at 100% crit chance here with a proper setup, right? So when it comes to our heart, we have the Barber Heart here, and I have a 2.9 seconds, absorbs the target, blows up, does a lot of damage. It's such a good heart, so it's definitely worth it here. If you don't have it, you'll still be doing the content. And And then when you get it, it's just going to make it so much easier as well. Moving on, we have our ring here. Again, I have crackling energy, damage to injured. These are rings that I've had, and I think this one's since level 51, but it doesn't matter. I'm using it because I'm putting the aspect on, and that's pretty much it. And I'm putting my brutal heart here for the damage suppression. So this is 14% of incoming damage is instead suppressed. And then when you use a defensive ability like your flame shield or your ice armor or your frost nova, it blows up and does that damage. Not really for the damage, okay? It is 250% or whatever, 19,000 damage, but it's more for the damage suppression, damage reduction here. Ideally on these rings, you don't really want crackling energy. You don't really want those ones. What you want is maximum life, critical strike chance, critical strike damage, probably vulnerable damage. There are some scenarios where, like, I guess if you have like critical strike lightning to lightning damage on all your rings, right, then I guess that might be worth it. But I would definitely prefer maximum life, maybe even resource regeneration or mana, but I would stick to just doing more damage. So critical strike chance, critical strike damage, and then vulnerable damage with a, you know, that's where you decide, is it maximum life that you need? Is it more resource regeneration? Is it, actually, I would probably just stick with those. I'd probably just stick with probably resource regeneration, because remember, we want to be at 100% so that we can be getting more damage with our aspect here. So those are kind of what you want. Sorry if I'm kind of rambling off here. I'm kind of just discussing here. My rolls are so bad, you can see, and so I'm kind of like just not theory crafting really. These are all pretty much the stats that everyone wants on their rings. But in case people don't know, for my other ring here, I have the recharging aspect, and this is what earlier we were talking about, 80% chance to have your chain lightning bounce additional 4 times. Every time the aspect here recharging, every time the chain lightning bounces, you gain 1.5 mana. This is the basic aspect, so I could be doubling this if I just had one, and I do have one in my inventory. I'm just not putting it on until I get to ancestral gear, right? And I did have a lot of ancestral drops recently, but I just didn't go through them all. But definitely, you want 3 mana every time it bounces off. Think about it, just you're gonna have so much chain lightnings bouncing off that you're gonna be getting all your mana back, and this is really what we need. This is why we put that aspect 80% chance on lightning to bounce off on our staff there, to get that high percentage, right? Because otherwise it's only 40%, and it's really not that high. 80% is awesome. So again, critical strike damage, critical strike chance, resource regeneration, and probably vulnerable damage on your rings. That's what you want. Let me actually go back here, and I'm gonna, before I show you guys, I want to show you how this works here. So you are, here we go, right here. So you can see as you're throwing the lightning down, you can see my mana on the bottom corner. It's just regenerating, right? Every time it's bouncing, I'm getting 1.5 mana. And so imagine having that at 3 mana every time it bounces. I do have in the Paragon, in the skill tree, which we're going to talk about. Right now, I am taking a little bit extra mana regeneration here by some skill points. So I do want to mention that you don't need to have the crackling mana give you the crackling energy give you mana when you get to a certain point, like when your aspects are better, because what happens is you end up not needing those skill points. So getting into our skills now, we have the enchanted aspect of Firebolt, which is direct damage from skills applies burning. Whenever we're applying burning to enemies, we're also doing increased damage. And then we have the Fireball enchantment, which is when you kill an enemy, they explode. I do like using another, I was, for like early, prior to 50, I was actually using the Frozen Orb aspect, but I'll mention that in a little bit here. So those are the 2 enchantments that you like. And then here, actually, I am going to kind of mouse over it. It's the Frozen Orb. So there is a scenario where you can run Frozen Orb as your enchantment. So whenever you cast a non-basic skill, you have a 30% chance to launch a Frozen Orb. However, I just felt like it is cool. It does look cool and does do really well. But the Fireball is it's just better. It's more consistent, right? Whenever you kill something, not a 30% chance. Whenever you kill something and you're killing a lot, So moving on to our skill tree here. I will make a build on D4 builds here and post it, but I'm just going to quickly go over it. We do have our 2 points into Firebolt, and that's the reason it's 2 is so we could get into the next tree. Again, you're going to want as many Chain Lightning points as possible. So we go into Chain Lightning, we go into Destructive Chain Lightning. We have 1 point in Devastation, 3 points in Dominance. Let me make this a little bit bigger here. And then we have Fireball too. So the reason we want it also on the gloves, and you can, you just re-roll it. It takes a little harder to get, right? I don't have it, but ideally that's what you'd want, is for that increased damage for the Fireball damage when they're exploding, right? Moving on, we have Flame Shield here. We have 1 point to Flame Shield, but we have that 2 item contribution from our boots. Flame Shield is going to be something you're going to be using all the time, along with your Ice Armor. For the Flame Shield, we're going to Mystical Flame Shield for mana reduction. And for the Ice Armor, we're going to the first point here, Enhanced Ice Armor for the mana regeneration. After that, we are taking our points into Frost Nova. We have 2 points in it so far. 3 points in it. We have 2 from item. Ideally, you want to have... right, if you can sacrifice something else that we'll talk about in a little bit, taking +3/+4 to all defensives on your amulet is great. But as far as that, we're going into Mystical Frost Nova. Almost forgetting here, we want to put 3 points into Glass Cannon, and then we want to have 1 point in Elemental Attunement. You can possibly get more points into this. I just feel like the Chain Lightning base lucky hit though is so low, it's at 25%, that I guess you could invest into it and get a little bit higher. I just don't think you need it. The build needs it. We're going into our defensives here, which are going to be Mana Shield 3 points, and then Protection 3 points, and then 1 in Alignment to Elements. For our next tree here, we are going to put 3 points in Devouring Blaze. Now remember, we do have +1 from our amulet here. So if you choose to go the more offensive route, you'll have on your amulet have ranks to Devouring Blaze. If you go the more defensive route, you're going to have defensive skills on your amulet. So you have to kind of pick and choose which one you want, which one feels better for you. But Devouring Blaze does at this point increase our critical strike damage by 28% multiplicative. So of course, if they're immobilized too, it's up 40%. So I think that's very good. I would probably take that instead, but it's up to you how you feel you're progressing. For our here we have 1 point into Inner Flames, and that's pretty much just to get into the next rank. Moving on, we have 1 in Static Discharge here, and then we have 3 in Invigorating Conduit. So this is where I was talking about earlier. Right now, because I'm not using my better rolled aspects, I'm only getting half of the mana back that I should be getting, right? That I could be getting. So I have points into Invigorating Conduit, which is whenever I pick up one of those crackling energies, I gain 12 mana. Eventually, you don't need this. You can put these 3 points into your Ice Armor, your Frost Nova, your Flame Shield. You can really kind of decide where you're going to use that. But for now, especially if you're just 50, right, that's a good spot to use it. You could also throw it into the Conduction, which is just for movement speed. And I know that is probably where I'll put him in, just because I like movement speed. I feel like all classes in the game need to have increased movement speed overall. But for this tree, we are going into Unstable Currents for our ultimate, and then we are going into Prime Unstable Currents. After that, you're going to put 3 points in Coursing Currents, and then you're going to put 3 points in Electrocution. And our last point is into Veer's Master. Remember, we have that aspect that synergizes with it, but also out of all these, this is the one you're doing since we're doing shock skills, okay? Moving on, our Paragon board. Now, right now, currently, I am only into 3 Paragon boards. For our starter board, we have Flame Feeder, and that is increased damage to burning enemies. Remember, we have the enchanted aspect here, so we're just burning all the enemies. Then we go into our next tree, which is the Burning Instinct board. And this is for that increased burning damage. We're not taking the actual node, but we are going into Kindling, which is the center node, which is making us do more damage to burning enemies and elites. Eventually, when I level up more, I'll put more points into this area here. For our second glyph, it's Destruction Glyph, which is increased critical strike damage. I did just get this one to 15 after this video. So of course you want to get all your glyphs to 15. But right now as it stands, I have 3 boards. And my third board is, I'm putting Elementalist in there, and it's actually the enchantment board. So Elementalist is increasing our non-physical damage. I just got to this board, but there is a lot of intelligence on this board, so you want to put it on here, and of course you want to level the board as well. Guys, that's the build that I have so far. I will be doing an updated Paragon board on d4builds.gg. I'll put it in the description. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate all the support, guys. Like the video if you liked the video. Thank you for hanging around till the very end. I appreciate you guys, and good luck and take care.